Oh, hello. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to Refinery Church. We're glad to have you joining us here this morning. If you're joining us online, and welcome to you as well. We are going to start off by singing some songs together. If you would like to stand and join us, and we'll have the lyrics up on the side for you. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now, and in the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out, and yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. And yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Yes, I will. I count on one thing, the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now, and in the waiting, the same God who's never late is working all things out. You're working all things out, and yes, I will you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. And yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will, and I choose to praise, and to glorify the name of all names, and that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, and to glorify the name of all names, and that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, and to glorify the name of all names, and that nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, and to glorify the name of all names, and that nothing can stand against. And yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will.
than silver, more than gold. You are the treasure that I hold. Now that I've tasted of your goodness, nothing else will satisfy. Just give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. You are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't need anyone else. I don't need anything else. You are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. 'Cause you are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. 'Cause you are my one thing. 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 Just give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. 'Cause you are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. 'Cause you are my one thing. 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 Just give me Jesus.
God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant and of faithful promises. And time again, you have proven you'll do just what you said. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I remain steadfast. And let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Yeah, great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Oh,
history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true.
though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I remain steadfast. And let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. That great is your faithfulness to me. Yeah, great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me.
My anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. Put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. 'Cause I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. 'Cause great is your faithfulness to me. Yeah, great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. From the rising sun to the setting, same I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. Dear Heavenly Father, God, we just want to lift you high this morning as we sing these words. And God, we just thank you for your Son, Jesus, for his sacrifice on the cross for us, and that we can be here today, all these years later, and just rejoice in him. God,
we just celebrate Jesus and his sacrifice for us, God. And I just want to pray this morning that you would just help us to have a servant's heart as we talk about service and servitude this morning, Lord, that there's joy in service, and it's not just work, God, but it's something that we do for you and that we can rejoice in with you in a way just to build our relationship with you. And I pray that you would help to grow that in us and to help us to be people who reflect your Son, Jesus. I just pray that you would bless these words as they're shared this morning and just help us to internalize them. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Well, a very good morning to you. This is a great day to be here, isn't it? I need this. I don't know about you guys. I hope you need this, but I need this. I love to get together here with you guys. I'm so excited to see you here this morning. I'm so excited to have you online with us, those who are joining online. It's just great to be here with you. What a beautiful sunny start now to the day. It started kind of miserable. I got here, there was ice on the sidewalk, there was snow. We had to clear that off. We put salt out this morning, if you can believe it. And then the sun came out and God said, just let me take care of that. And it was like, yeah, it's way better than the salt. So it was like, oh, fantastic. What a great day. We're moving towards spring, and I'm fired up about that. We got all kinds of stuff on the horizon here at the church. We got Easter coming here right away. I've said a few weeks ago that I hope you're thinking about who you know that you might invite to join you here for Easter service. We're planning a special service for that day and looking forward to that. We've got some other stuff on the planning books here that are coming up. We got our starting point class that's going to be starting sometime just after Easter. So just some really great stuff that I think God is up to, and I'm excited about it. So I hope you are too. Great to be here with you today. We are in a series where we're calling it Fresh Start. And those of you who've been around the last week or so know that we've been talking about getting a fresh start in some area of your life, some area of my life, and maybe multiple areas depending on where we're at. And typically when we talk about fresh starts, or somebody talks to you about having a fresh start, it's easy for us to think about kind of like New Year's resolution types of fresh starts. Things like, well, I'm gonna lose some weight. I'm gonna go on this diet. I'm gonna just get a little bit healthier. I'm gonna get some exercise. I'm gonna spend less. I'm going to save more. I'm going to spend some more time with my spouse or with my kids or the family or whatever. I'm going to start this particular thing. I'm going to stop doing that particular thing, whatever it might be, right? And what we've been saying here now is we've been talking about this and saying, you know what, we can all sort of relate to that, even if you're not like sort of the New Year's resolution type of person. We can all relate to the idea of needing a fresh start in our lives because we all mess up. There's something that we all have in common is we all make mistakes. We all mess up. If we were perfect, we've said, there would be no need for a fresh start. But we are not perfect, and so we do need to have fresh starts in our lives. And so we started talking about getting a fresh start with God. That was week 1 of our series, and some of you remember that. We talked about getting a fresh start with God, and for you, or that might mean sort of reigniting a relationship with God that started many, many years ago, maybe, or maybe just even a handful of years ago, and it sort of dissolved, and COVID hit, or whatever it might be for you. Life hit you in a way, or something happened, and just, you kind of drifted away from God, away from church, and that sort of thing. And you would say today that, you know what, I could use a fresh start. I could use a fresh start with God. That would describe me. Or maybe for some of you, it's getting a fresh start with God for the first time. That you've never said yes to Jesus Christ, that you've never said yes to receiving his love and forgiveness in your life, and maybe it's just that's starting a relationship with God for the first time. Let me tell you, if you would like to do that, would you come talk with me after service? I'd love to hear from you about that, because I want to follow up with you about that. I want to follow up about your decision to follow Jesus Christ, if that's where you're at. But I'll say this, whatever you do, don't do nothing. Because your fresh start with God, my goodness, your fresh start with God, it can get so easily derailed. I've seen this so many times, and some of you could tell your story of how a fresh start with God got so easily derailed, and it can happen in the same way that like those New Year's resolutions that we sometimes make, they can get so easily derailed, and by January 15th, it's already, I'm off the, like, everything's falling apart kind of thing. It can happen in a relationship with God as well. So your relationship with God, it's really what forms the foundation to be able to get a fresh start in all of these other areas of your life. Whatever it is that you might think of and say, you know what, I could sure use a fresh start here or whatever it might be. That relationship with God, it's just so foundational to all of that in terms of saying, I could use a new beginning. I could use a new beginning. So I want to challenge you and encourage you, take a step with God if you have not to this point. That was week 1. Last week we talked about getting a fresh start in terms of our relationships with other people. Relationship with God was the foundation, the primary thing. Relationship with other people was what we talked about last week. And I think that all of us could likely think of at least one and maybe multiple relationships that we go, oh boy, that one could sure use a fresh start. Or that one too, or that maybe we've got to look in the mirror a little bit depending on how many you have, right? But we've probably got at least one that we could go, you know what? I think we could use a new beginning in this relationship here. And unfortunately, we live in a culture that encourages us to walk away when the going gets tough. That it's easier to walk away than it is to try and navigate through. We tend to give up on relationships just so easily, too easily. And so last week what we said was that we need to live in such a way that we are going to do whatever we need to do, whatever I can do on my side of the equation in that relationship. I'm going to do whatever it takes to try to heal whatever's broken in that relationship. That I'm going to work at it. I'm going to do what I can to heal whatever's broken in that relationship. Remember that phrase we talked about last week, as far as it depends on you. As far as it depends on you. That there's my side of the equation that I can take care of. Unfortunately, most of us live in that as long as it's easy, as long as it's comfortable, as long as that's what's going on, then I can hang out here. But as soon as it gets hard, when the going gets tough, we tend to bail rather than saying, you know what, I'm going to put in some hard work. It might not be real comfortable. It might not be really easy, but I'm going to try and navigate through that. So we talked about that idea that you can get a fresh start in any relationship. Any relationship. I don't know, you might be thinking of one and you might think, my goodness, this relationship's so bad. It doesn't matter. Any relationship can get a fresh start for you, but you have to be willing, you have to take that step into that as far as it depends on you. If you missed last week, you can go on our website and catch up there. Okay, that brings us up to speed. That's, I think, everything we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. Now some of you are going, I heard all that. Yeah, well, refresher, right? We need it sometimes, right? So now we're going to fresh start something else here. Today I want to talk about another area in your life, in my life, that might need a fresh start. And I want to move into this by asking you the question, is there anybody here who wants to be a servant? Anybody want to be a servant? You've probably never been asked that question. I don't know, maybe you have. Maybe in a certain circle, I don't know. But I doubt it. I doubt that too many people have asked you, would you like to be a servant? And nobody wants to yell out the answer in church. Sometimes I'll throw that out there and somebody will just yell something. Today it's kind of like, sort of maybe, yeah. But anybody want to be, let that just sort of sink in. Does anybody want to be, do I want to be a servant? Generally, we don't. Generally speaking, we don't want to be servants. We'd like to have some servants sometimes, but we don't want to be servants. Married guys, if I were to ask your wife how good you are at serving, like the trash needs to go out, right? Because the bag's like overflowing kind of thing. And there's been a burnt out light bulb in the hall for some time now, and the dishes are supposed to go in the dishwasher. Like, these are just examples. I'm trying to think of things. These sorts of things, right? If I were to ask your wife, guys, married guys, if you just serve without even being asked, without even being mentioned, hey, did you put your dishes in the, hey, did you get that trash? Could you take that? Hey, there's a light bulb burned out. You just serve without even being asked about it. There's a smile on your face, right? Everything's good. You have a pleasant attitude. It's not garbage, light bulb, whatever it might be. I wonder what your wife would say, guys, married guys. I wonder what she would say. And then wives, I wonder, if I were to ask your husband how good you are at serving. I'm pretty sure your husband would say that you're better at it than he is, right? I think that's mostly what sort of we would hear, something like that. But think about it. Think about that. What if we had one of your coworkers here? I don't know where your workplace is, right? But let's say there were some folks from your workplace here, and we were to ask them, what kind of servant you are. Are you good at serving in your workplace? I wonder what we would hear. I wonder what they would say. Young people, teenagers, probably don't have to ask what your mom would say about your serving record, because generally in those years, it's not strong. It's not real strong. I wonder how many of us in those years do or maybe did or didn't or whatever. I wonder how many of us serve without being asked in those ages, without grumbling, no complaints. There is no TV show, there's no video game that could ever get in the way, right, of serving when mom's asking to do something, right? Generally speaking, we don't make the greatest servants. Generally speaking, and some of you are going to, you break the mold on this one, but generally speaking, we don't make the greatest servants. Jesus comes along, on the other hand, and Jesus was he was an amazing servant. And remember, every time we talk about Jesus around here, we ought to take note, because we're striving to become followers of Jesus. That's what the church is all about. We want to inspire you to follow Jesus Christ if you don't already. And if you do, then we want to help you build that relationship and grow your faith, right? So we're just striving to become followers of Jesus Christ. So take note, because we're about to learn something about serving from the one that we say we follow. And if you don't follow Jesus Christ, that's okay. I'm just glad you're here to find out a little bit about it. We welcome you and say thank you for coming and checking this out. Thank you for engaging online and finding out a little bit about what it does mean to follow Jesus Christ, because he was absolutely an amazing servant. In fact, one time Jesus was hanging out and having a conversation with some of his closest friends. This is very common. They did a lot of engaging in that way. And he was talking to him, and he says, listen, guys, I got to tell you something here. Here's something you need to understand about me. I did not come here to be served. I didn't come planet Earth to be served. I came to serve. My mission is not to be served. My whole purpose is that I would serve. My purpose is all wrapped up in serving other people. My purpose is all wrapped up in serving everybody. I'm not going to pick just this group of people or just that person. It's everybody. It's just this broad blanket. My whole mission is just all about serving other people. I think that's so powerful, because we don't see that in our culture. I mean, who says that? The purpose of my life is simply to serve anybody and everybody. Who says that? Who backs it up? Who other than Jesus has ever said that? So why was Jesus such a great servant? I'll tell you why. Because it was never all about him. It was never all about him. I can't say that that's the case in my life. I can't say that it's always not about me all the time, right? I don't know about you, but for Jesus, it was never all about him. Jesus was all about other people. In fact, the only time in Jesus' life that I would say, as I read through the accounts of Jesus, the historical records of Jesus, the only time that it was about him was when he needed to rest and when he needed to recharge his own batteries so that he could be a better servant. That was the only time that it was about Jesus, is when he needed to push the pause button to get a little shut-eye or take a break or a mental sort of break from things so that he could be a better servant. Crazy. We don't generally make really great servants because we're selfish. Nobody likes to hear that, right? I don't want to, the mirror right here, I'm selfish. No, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to have anybody say that about me. I don't want anybody to even think that about me, right? I think that would be the case, that you don't want somebody to say that or even think that about you. But we don't make great servants because we are selfish people. And it's not like we're just such rotten men and such rotten women or anything like that. But when an opportunity to serve comes up, our first questions are usually pretty self-focused. The first questions that we have when opportunities to serve come up, they're usually pretty self-focused. I start to think, well, I don't know, do I have the time? You get asked to do so. Do I have the time to do that? I don't know. Is this going to interfere with something else in my schedule? I don't know if I'll be able to pull that. Do I have the energy to do this? I'm not sure. You know what? I'm not even sure that I'm really qualified to do this. I think, there's somebody else that's better. Somebody else will. We tend to consider ourselves first and where we are at in light of the opportunity before us. Usually that's the case. We tend to consider ourselves and where we're at. Jesus, on the complete flip side, on the other hand, his default was to look first at others. And I'm telling you, that makes all the difference. If you've ever been able to do that, you would know, too, it just makes all the difference. Jesus, his whole life, and not even just his life, but his death as well, it was about serving other people. It was about serving other people, even in his death. It was all about serving everybody. There's a story about Jesus serving, and it's a very familiar story. If we're going to talk about serving, you know, those of you who are familiar with the words of the Bible, you might go, "Oh, I can think of a good story that sort of fits that." Yeah, and this is the one. This is very familiar story of Jesus serving, and I want to share this story with you today. It's actually written down, told to us by a friend of Jesus, a guy named John. And he was witness to this clinic of serving that Jesus put on this one time. And so he wrote it all down. And so we've got this, again, this historical account of what happened this particular evening. And so this is from John chapter 13. Here's how it reads. We're going to put it on the screen so you can follow along and see exactly what John had to say. He says, it was just before the Passover festival, which was a big celebration that in Jewish life, this was something that they were all about, right? So I think do we have the slides? Yeah, perfect. It was just before the Passover festival, and Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to his Father. So his time on earth was winding down, and he knew it. His time of ministry, I don't know if you're aware of this, Jesus started his ministry about at the age of 30, and by the age of 33, he was done. So it was a very short ministry period, a very short time. And Jesus knew that the time it was winding down, it was time to leave this world. He was going to go back to his heavenly Father. And having loved his own who were in this world, he loved them right to the end. The evening meal was in progress. Ooh, that sounds tasty. And then we get to and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. You've heard of Judas, some of you, even if you're not a Bible reader, you've maybe heard of Judas, who was a friend of Jesus, and Satan kind of prompted Judas and said, hey, I think you need to do this, and it's going to turn the tables on Jesus, and it's going to bring him down, and so this is what was going on here. He was going to betray his friend Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father, God, had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God, and that he was returning to God. And so he got up from the meal, and he took off his outer clothing. He was probably dressed like I am today. He took off his outer clothing, whatever shirt he had on, and he wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured some water into a basin, and he began to wash his disciples' feet, which we, like, you know, if you're not familiar with this, in that culture, this was a thing. People had sandals, and it was desert-like, and so your feet would get dirty and sweaty and dusty and then you'd go to someone's house and you would recline at the table, like you'd sort of, it wasn't chairs and tables like we know today, you'd recline more at a table, and so the guy's feet are like right next to where you're trying to eat and stuff, and it's like that nasty business, right? And so they would wash, just as an act of hospitality, you would wash your guests' feet. Somebody would do that. But usually it wasn't the host. They'd have a servant who did it. They'd have a servant do it. And so Jesus, he's got this water in a basin, and he starts washing his disciples' feet, and he's drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. And he gets to Simon Peter, good friend of his, Peter. Some of you have heard of Peter. And Peter says to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, man, Peter, you don't realize what it is that I'm doing right now. But there's going to come a point later on, you're going to understand this. This is going to make sense to you. Peter's like, no way, man. I'm paraphrasing here a little. You're never going to wash my feet. That's not happening, Jesus. Where's the servants here, right? And Jesus says, listen, Peter, unless I wash you, you have no part with me. Whoa, what? Well, then, Lord, Simon Peter replied, don't just wash my feet, get my hands, get my head as well. Take care of things, right? Because I want all part of you. And Jesus said to him, he's like, those who have had a bath, they need only to wash their feet. That's the only part that's getting all dusty now, right? Their whole body is clean. He says, you're clean. And he says, though not every one of you. Because guess who's still sitting at the table there in that circle of his close friends? There was Judas. He knew who was going to betray him. And that's why he said, not everyone there was clean. And when he finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes, the shirt that he had taken off, the garment that he'd removed, and he returned to his place, just reclining at the table. And then he said, do you understand what it is that I've done for you? Do you know what it is that I've done here for you? I wonder what they thought at that moment. He kept going on. He said, you call me teacher and Lord. And rightly so. That's who I am. And now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. To which they're going, but Jesus, that's the job of a servant. That's what the servants are supposed to do. That's not for us, Jesus. And he says, you should wash one another's feet. I've set for you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Well, that's the whole idea when we talk about following Jesus. Is we look at what did Jesus do and how do now I follow. Well, that's the same, that nothing's changed. That's exactly what was going on when Jesus was here on this earth and doing his ministry and stuff. He just says, I've just set an example for you. You just go do as I have done for you. And he says, very truly, I tell you this. He says, there is no servant who is greater than his master. There is no messenger who is greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, Jesus said, sort of the summary now. Now that you know all this stuff, you will be blessed if you do it. You will be blessed if you do it. Now, I don't know. We read this story, and some of you who have been following Jesus for years, you've read this story many, many times. You've heard this story. You've heard somebody probably teach on this story. Maybe you've led a study group where you taught on this story. Maybe you've been here before. I've talked about this story before, and you've heard that. Some of you here, you know this story very, very, very well. You could get up here and talk about this story and teach us something about your own experience with it. Jesus simply models serving for us. Not just for the people who were in that room that night. Jesus is simply being a model of a servant for us. And he tells us to go and do the same thing. His words, I've set an example for you that you should do as I have done for you. Jesus says, go serve because I did. You go serve because I did. Follow me. Now, let's be honest here. This clearly does not work for everyone. This model, if you will, it clearly doesn't work for everybody. Some people are just not motivated to serve simply because Jesus served. Some people, I'm going to say again, are not motivated to serve just because Jesus served. And maybe that describes you. Come on, how many of us have been around the church? We've got a Bible or the Bible app. And at some sort of, even on a surface sort of level, we know Jesus served. Understand that Jesus, okay, yeah, he said he came to serve and not to be served. And so, yeah, I get it. We know that Jesus served. We know that Jesus has called us to follow him. We know that that's the model. That's the game plan. But we, maybe I should say I, maybe it's an insert your name here, we haven't really got involved in serving anybody. And I don't know if that describes anyone. I do know it doesn't describe everyone. But if it does describe you, and I guess even if it doesn't, let me help you see this through a little bit of a different lens here. I'm going to try to give you a different way of looking at this, okay? Maybe just a bit different way, because the reality is it's not simply about serving just because Jesus did. I mean, that's what he said, though, right? He says, I've served, I've served you. I've showed you the way. I want you to go do what I've done. But it's not just simply about serving because Jesus did. Serving is the byproduct. I think we got a slide for this. Serving is the byproduct of a heart that is becoming more and more and more like Jesus Christ. Serving is a byproduct of your heart growing closer to God, getting to know Jesus more and more, and having that desire, that heart that says, I want to be a servant. And that being the case, maybe serving isn't a matter of, I don't know, do I have the time? I know there's this opportunity here, and it's sort of, I could help out, or I could do, but do I have the time? I don't know. Like, do I have the energy? Maybe serving isn't a matter of, do I have the skill set to tackle this? Maybe serving is a matter of, do I have the heart? Do I have the heart? Without question, serving is about following the model that Jesus set, without question. It's also about the kids right now who are back there in our kid zone spaces, in the children's areas back there, who are just learning about God's love. Really in the same way that we're learning about God's love, just at their level, right? They're just learning about God's love. And that kid needs to see it modeled by somebody. Those kids need to see it modeled by somebody. Serving is about a teenager who needs to know that he or she matters. And not just that they matter, but they matter to God. Serving is about any new guest who comes in the doors of our church, and we've had a lot of new guests coming in the doors of our church here. Serving is about that whole opportunity that you and I have as people who call this church our home, that opportunity to introduce Jesus Christ to somebody. And the introduction starts with simply a friendly face at the front door, or a friendly face out in the parking lot, or wherever, a friendly face sitting here, it's a welcoming place. Serving is the byproduct of a heart that is becoming more and more and more and more like Jesus Christ. A heart that cares deeply for people, all people, and it desires to serve in a way that continually points people to God. Continually points people to God. Like he's over here. And I'm telling you, we have so many tremendous servants here at this church. We really do. I applaud you. We have so many. But there are times where we so easily we default to things like, oh, yeah, somebody else will do that. Yeah, you're right. Somebody else probably will eventually. But hear me on this, okay? Serving is not so much about getting the task done. Serving is not so much about accomplishing whatever the task is, as it is about you growing a bigger and bigger and bigger heart, and a heart that is more like Jesus. In fact, serving is so intrinsic to our God. Serving is so just absolutely who he is and what he's all about, that when it comes to serving God, or when it comes to following God, you really aren't following God if you're not serving. Ouch. Right? Serving so intrinsic to who God is. It's at the very heart and core of who he is. So if you're not serving God, then are you even following God? I'm not really following if I'm not serving. Following Jesus, it's participatory by its very nature. It's just participatory, just by the nature of what it is. So here's where I want to end today. Maybe for some time, some of you have sat here and you've felt that nudge from God, and I'll talk about something and you're like, oh, he's talking to me, or what, you just feel that kind of nudge from God. That's not me, that's God. And it's that nudge to say, get off the sidelines, get involved, participate, serve, follow. Maybe today, for some of us, this is the first time we've ever heard about this kind of thing. Maybe this is just all new, and it's like, whoa, what? Right, and blow my mind. I had no idea. And listen, if this is the first time and you're not actively serving, then I hope you've been challenged today. That was my goal in this, was to challenge us in this regard. Fresh start. to challenge us to maybe take a step in an area where we've maybe never done before. I think it would be completely ridiculous of me as a pastor or as a speaker or just as a friend. It'd be ridiculous of me to stand here and challenge somebody to serve without giving any practical ways for you to be able to take a next step. Without providing some kind of meaningful way for you to be able to serve. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to take initiative on your part. Nobody's going to strong arm anybody. We can't. We don't want to. That's not what it's about. That's not serving then, right? That's working. Serving. It's going to take some initiative on your part. You're going to have to take a step. We've got all kinds of different ways that you can serve around here. There's all kinds of different opportunities to serve in this church. Serving around here has always been a team effort. We value teams. We don't like the Lone Ranger thing, right? We like to serve together. We're about building family, which means that when you serve, you get to know some people. If you've been around here for a little bit and you don't know anybody, serve, because you're going to get to know somebody. You're going to meet some people in the process, and you're going to get to know them, right? And you're going to make some connections. We value that team ministry. So, like right now, we've got Kids Zone teams out there that are doing things with the kids and with their children's stuff, right? And there's opportunities there. There's opportunities to serve. You could be one of the Kids Zone group leaders, or you can assist in some of the stuff that goes on. We've got that nursery that got sort of shut down during COVID, and now it needs to get ramped back up because there's some babies happening. It's good stuff, right? And so we need some servants to help in that area of our ministry here, right? And why? Well, because guests come and they bring little kids with them, and then they're able to take part in what goes on here without being distracted with their kid, right? Like, it's a great opportunity. We've got a youth ministry team. They'd be thrilled to help or have you help out in serving our teens around here. There's opportunities to serve as a group leader or as a host. There's opportunities to serve with our Beyond Our Walls missions team. If you're not familiar, we partner with some different ministries outside of our church, and we try to help them out financially, and in other ways we try to build relationships with them. There's opportunities to serve with that team. They just connect us with those ministry partners outside of our own church family. We've got an opportunity coming up in a week or two here. The president of Alberta Bible College in Calgary is going to be here presenting on how we got our New Testament scriptures. If you've wondered ever how we got our Bible, what a great opportunity. It's right after service. It's a free lunch. It's a free... Young people, it's a free lunch. Like, yes, if I was in college, like, free lunch, what's happening? I'm going, right? Like, anyhow, that's coming up. There's opportunities to connect there. You can serve with our worship teams up here. I mean, unbelievable what this crew does. We're not a big church, but man, has God blessed us with some folks with ability to sing and to lead and to play and to... Whoa, it's crazy cool. There's opportunities to serve here as a singer or a musician. I mean, there's our tech crew back there. Always do the absolute best job. I love it. They do the sound and they do the video and all this, any of things with that lights and all this stuff, right? We used to have a guest services team here that again got killed because of COVID and just never has ramped back up. It's time. It's time. We've got to build that thing up. We've got to be able to, you know what's happening? I told you a couple of times about our parking lot. People are coming in and there's no parking available in the front because there's people showing up, right? And if you don't know the facility, you don't know that there's parking back here, or you don't know that we can park in the lot next door. We need somebody out there to help as a parking attendant. Woohoo! Like, I'm telling you, if this wasn't I would be out there. I love it. We were down in Atlanta at a church, and this was a really big church, and so their parking attendants drove around in golf carts, and the building was like, the parking was so far from where the building that you could just get a ride in the golf cart. And I was like, this is gold. I love engaging with people this way, so that's right up my alley. Maybe that's you. Maybe you could do guest services. If you have to tell your face to smile, guest services is not for you. If somebody ever bought you one of those shirts from Disneyland that say Grumpy Dwarf or whatever, guest services is not for you, okay? Like, yeah, that should go without saying, but I'll say it. There's all kinds of ways that you can help out. There's all kinds of ways that you can get involved. And again, this isn't about accomplishing tasks. It's about right there. Right there. Getting that thing bigger and bigger and bigger. It's about following the one that we say we follow. And he says, look what I did. You need to go and do the same thing. If you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you need to be a servant, period. So I'm going to ask the same question I asked right at the start. Anybody want to be a servant? Yeah. That's enthusiastic pre-lunch deal. Then the next step that you need to take is you need to let somebody know that you want to serve. We want to help. We want to help facilitate that. We want to help you find a place of meaningful service, something that works for you, that aligns with your time, that aligns with your passions, that aligns with your giftedness and such. But you got to take the initiative and you got to let us know. And you can do so. How? Well, convenient card right in the pocket in front of you or on the seat that you sat down, depending on where you sat today. I want to be a servant. Right? I want to be a servant. And on the back of that card, it just outlines all kinds of opportunities there. We're asking for your name, some kind of way to contact you. Look at those opportunities, right? There's all kinds of, there's stuff that I didn't even talk about. Do you know that there's people that come in here and clean this facility every week that aren't getting paid for that? They're just serving. They're servants. And they need to be thanked on a regular basis, except they kind of like serving behind the scenes usually. And so it's a very not upfront kind of thing. Well, we've got some upfront kind of stuff, and we've got some behind the scenes kind of stuff, if that matches with you some more, whatever it might be. But would you take that card and take a look at it and, maybe check a couple of boxes? You're not locking in for life. If it doesn't work, nobody's going to look at you sideways and go, like, it's just like, can we try to find a place? And if it doesn't work on the first match, let's try another one, right? Like, this is easy, folks. I hope that you would do it. Check one of those boxes. Check a couple of those boxes, and somebody will get a hold of you to follow up. But if you are ready, do not put it off. If you say, I follow Jesus Christ and don't serve, then are you really following the one who said he came to serve, not to be served? Don't put it off. This is your fresh start as a servant. Let your heart just grow really, really, really big as you follow Jesus Christ. Let me pray for you. We'll wrap up. God, thank you that you, I thank you that Jesus did this serving thing. And he washed those guys' feet. And it just seems so odd to us, but we can understand the level of servanthood going on there. And God, we can understand that when you say that this is what I do and I need you to do what I do, you just do what I've done, and we're going to be followers of yours, that I think, God, that's not too hard for us to go, then I need to be a servant. And I pray that challenge would hit all of us here today, whether we're watching online or whether we're in-house. God, would we maybe step up in a way that we've never done before? And maybe we felt that sort of prompting from you or that sort of push from you, and we've just never moved in that direction. And today's the day for that fresh start, God, where we say, I'm going to move in your direction, God, when it comes to servitude. God, I pray that we would all take up that challenge and that our hearts would grow as a result, and that we would grow closer to you, and that our faith would grow real big as a result, and that some tasks would be accomplished. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. You can fill that card out if you'd like to, and if you want to take it home and think about it, you can fill it out sometime this week or whatever, and then just throw it in the offering boxes. There's one at the back of this room, there's one out in the foyer, and somebody will follow up with you on that. That would be great. Take care, have a great afternoon, and we're going to wrap this series up next Sunday. you.